In a world filled with dragons, an angry grieving mother, and a raging hard boner for Damon, someone dropped the ball and messed up the plot. Let's find out why.
If you're anything like me, you just came out of the third season of House of Dragons and you thought to yourself, that was disappointing, and can you just cut to the goddamn dragons? I think I know the reason why this season just came out so bad. And today we're going to be talking about the 4 things that I would change about House of Dragons Season 3 to make it better. Let's get into it. Before we get into the video, if you like this type of content, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me grow, and you can become a part of the World Squad.
Are you really gonna whore yourself out like that?
What? I'm just promoting the channel. I can't do that now? That's what is illegal?
You know what I mean. Nobody cares. Just get to the goddamn point.
Jesus, I'll get into it. Starting with the first point, the first thing that I would change about this season is the way that the show kills off its characters. In order to give an audience the shock, they killed characters off too early in the season, or even at the beginning of an episode. And I get it. I understand that writers are trying to throw us off the scent and catch us by surprise. But when you try to kill these important characters off too early or in an awkward way, it actually gives the death a less importance. I feel like this is something that can clearly improve the season if they just made a simple change to it. Take for examples, Jaehaerys. In the beginning of the season, he was killed off, but honestly, I feel like it was done in a way where it actually gave his character, being a very important character, a awkward death. Obviously, it was surprising. I was definitely shocked. Don't get me wrong, I felt that that internal, oh my god.
No, wait. Wait.
I love that character, he died. But it definitely took away from the moment, the way that they killed him and so early off in the season, when in reality he should have been either pushed to an end of the season, like season 2 have him die, or pushed to the end of season 3. I get that they're trying to follow a book, but in the end of the day, it doesn't really translate well to the actual audience or to you know, just watching. Another example of this is the time that Sir Criston, now I wasn't the biggest fan of Sir Criston, but the way that they killed him near the end of the season, just at the beginning of an episode, again, another example of them just trying to have shock, trying to create, you know, just divert expectations. I get it. There's ways you can kill characters where you can give that shock and yet give the scene importance. A great example is season 1 when Ned Stark gets his head chopped off. You do not expect that coming. Of course, if you're a nerd and you read the books, obviously you saw that coming. But if you're like me who didn't and you just came into the show raw, you didn't expect that death, but it gave it so much importance. Sir Criston's an example of them just killing him in the beginning of the episode, and yeah, he was looking to die, but they could have gave that scene more weight than just killing him just to kill him. And it's kind of like, when they do that, it's just kind of like they're pushing it along the way. They're just trying to get the scene to be done. Again, a death can shock the audience, but if you haven't given a character the proper weight that it deserves, you know, it just really doesn't mean anything. I'd rather have an important death done the right way than to be shocked. I want their death to actually mean something. Anyway, on to the next point. Do you remember when in Game of Thrones, characters who eventually died weren't just introduced into the story just to be killed off later on? In House of Dragons, it's like the writers completely forgot about that because they just start introducing characters that just die later on in the season, and it just takes away from the show altogether. And if you watch the season, you probably feel the exact same way I did. A great example of this is Ormond Hightower, who was introduced midway through this season, was given some great scenes. Of course, he was a through and through asshole. I did want him to die, but just to introduce him mid-season, this last season, season 3, and then to kill him off by the end of the season, it just feels like he was so much potential that he should have been in the show longer, and they just, again, introduced him to kill him, and that just makes the story feel cheap. It makes the world feel smaller than it actually is. I feel like one thing that they can improve about this season is let characters be around. If you're gonna kill Ormond Hightower, introduce him in the second season. Unless he's already in the second season and I'm just tripping. Being serious though, I actually feel like this is a genuine problem that the show has. It doesn't plan out what it wants to do in the future. Given the fact that they just introduce characters, again, to just get rid of them. It takes away from the show, it takes away from the world building, and it makes the world feel smaller. And I hate to bring up Game of Thrones because obviously the show did end poorly, but there was so much potential to that show, and that show did perfect. It was a masterpiece. The way that it built this large world with many different stories growing across Westeros and beyond. It just felt so grandiose compared to this show where it feels so small in comparison. It is simply just the Seven Kingdoms, but we're only seeing 2 locations and we're only seeing characters that are being introduced just to be killed off. I feel like there's so much more potential that the show can have if it just starts making these changes. My third thing that I would change is the way that the writers structure the story. An issue that I kept finding is that this season just felt off. The way that it paced its story, moving Rhaenyra into the actual King's Landing mid-season and having them take over mid-season and the rest of the season being her as a queen, really not mid-season, but close to it, it just felt awkward. In reality, they should have made Rhaenyra take over King's Landing at the end of season 2. It kind of felt like what ended up happening is originally they were gonna have her take over King's Landing at the end of season 2, but then they were told no, you can only do 8 episodes. So then they said, oh shoot, okay, we're gonna just put that into season 3, and then we're gonna shorten Rhaenyra's reign as a queen to only a couple episodes. Them already wasting time on certain plot points that I don't care about, it felt awkward. It felt like, again, they split the season down the middle. It didn't give enough emphasis to her redeeming her kingdom, taking on the throne like her father wished. It kind of like everything else in this season. It kind of just took away all the weight, all the meaning behind it, and they moved it forward. Don't get me wrong, they have amazing actors in the show that can still carry and make it entertaining, but the problem is that they're just placing things in the wrong way. It's like they don't know what the hell they're trying to do, and they're just rushing. It just makes it feel rushed. It makes the whole show feel rushed. I just wish that they place things better. How I would fix it is by making either, again, Rhaenyra takes over King's Landing at the end of season 3, which I think is actually a poor idea because of how much it would just kind of be like spinning its wheels, kind of like how season 2 felt. So just have Rhaenyra take over King's Landing at the end of season 2, and then this season 3 focus on Rhaenyra being the queen of King's Landing, giving more time to her actually showing her prowess as a leader, which I felt like the entire time, I felt like, I was trying to make excuses for her being a bad queen or feeling like she's not doing much because she's a grieving mother. They focus more on that than her actually ruling her kingdom the way that she should be. I feel like there's so much more potential with her being a queen that I end up thinking, you know what, maybe Daemon would have been a better king. Like, why, I'm gonna start backing Daemon, and that feels wrong to me. I just wish that they gave more emphasis on where their plot points are and gives that, it just gives the actual story more weight. It makes the actual dialogue more fun. There's just so many things I would change about this actual season. Continuing on this point, I just want to emphasize that the show doesn't need to feel like, it doesn't have to feel like it's rushing through certain plot points to get to another story beat, when in reality, if it was just better planned, it would end up coming out better. It would make the story feel more smoother, and just in reality, it would just make the story more enjoyable. I mean, the fact that we ended the season off on another battle where it's just heavily using its dragons to keep us entertained just feels like, can we do something else? Like the reason why Game of Thrones was so popular, obviously it had great battle scenes, but it was mostly because the characters were smart. There was so much more lore in the actual story than what we're getting here. My last and final change that I would make to the season that I would think it would just make the season so much better is just utilizing the dragons less.
Are you serious? Dragons are literally in the title of the show. Why wouldn't there be dragons? Plus, it's the only reason why I watched the show in the first place.
Are you going to let me finish my point, or are you just going to keep interrupting me? Like, at this point, it's just downright rude. Obviously, dragons are going to be a large part of this show. It is a part of the name, like Mark 2 said. Like, obviously, it's going to be in the show. Right, you're gonna have dragons. Part of the reason why I even went to the show is I wanted to see more dragons. I thought, the 3 dragons we got out of the Game of Thrones we didn't see enough. I want to see more dragons, but I didn't expect that to be the only reason why I'm continuing to see the show. Right, Daemon's dragon, fucking awesome. I don't know why I'm not cursing. It just a fucking awesome goddamn dragon. I love seeing the dragons. I love seeing how they act. I love the relationships between the dragon riders and the dragons. But I didn't expect that to be the only reason why I'm watching it. I think a large problem of the show is that it's now relying on dragons to be the sole interest of the show. Any scenes without the dragons, I just don't want to watch. And the biggest problem is because this lore that we're getting is just so, you know, straightforward. There's really no, like, Game of Thrones dialogue had so much more behind it. Things that were hidden that, you know, you keep watching the show, then you look back at what they said earlier, and you're like, oh my god, this was foreshadowing this point moving forward. We really don't get that. Or at least it's just so face value that they reveal it 2 seconds later, and it doesn't give the same weight. I think this show is trading a lot of its scenes for just quick time earning, or, like, you know, a quick reward for a long-term story. And of course, with the plot points being so rushed in certain parts, like in the beginning of the season, again, like I said, it's rushed getting Rhaenyra into King's Landing just so we can see her as a queen, when in reality that should have been given more emphasis. And then later on, they dragged its feet when showing Rhaenyra as a queen, and it feel like she didn't do enough, that she was a bad queen. I feel like the same thing is going on with the dialogue. They just are not giving a long-term, they're not focusing on the future, they're not focusing on the long-term reward, they're focused on just getting to each fun plot point because they don't trust that the viewer is going to come back. And I really don't know why. You know, obviously the people who are watching the show want to see the show be better, so make the show better. I think one big standpoint, just going from the difference between Game of Thrones and to House of Dragons, you know, obviously the Game of Thrones didn't start off with dragons, and I think it had to do much more effort to keeping you interested just simply with the dialogue. Characters could sit in a room for 10 minutes just talking about what's going on in Westeros, and you're absorbing every bit of that word, like every word that they're saying. You're focusing, you're interested, you're involved. You know, just Game of Thrones had such a fluidity to its dialogue that later in the season, it kind of lost. That's why Season 7 and Season 8 were just so bad. But House of Dragons, it's just focusing on the fact that, hey, you got dragons. Do you like dragons? Cool. We're going to make the whole season finale just be a bunch of dragons blowing fire at people. That's the coolest part. And a battle scene. But it just doesn't feel earned. You know, these plot points just don't feel earned. Fucking Ormond Hightower dying to a dragon. I don't know. There are just so many things that I wish, you know, I wish they did differently with this season. And those are the 4 things that I would change about House of Dragons this season to make it better. Again, I don't think it's a bad show overall. I just think there's a lot of changes that I would make to it. Just, you know, these are some of the changes that I would make to it to actually make it a better season. I think it'd make it a lot more entertaining for you guys, for me as well. I think it'd come out as a better story overall. If you guys agree or disagree, please leave a like or please leave a comment down below. If you guys like this type of content, you want to see me continue to make it, please also subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Again, I appreciate you guys for watching this video, and I hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. See you next time.